Call the Kitty Hawk Town Council to order this Monday, June 4th, 2018 at Kitty Hawk Town Hall. It is now 6 p.m. on the dot. All right. Glad to see those folks that are here. Welcome. Would you join us for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, opposed? None. We have a presentation, Ms. Jenny Ash. We're going to talk about racing. And I guess it's not NASCAR racing, is it?
We haven't gotten into that yet. Never know. Well, thanks so much for having us. We are here to report a little bit about our year in review, and we will keep it short and sweet. We had a great 2017. This is Ray Robinson, our executive director, and I'm the race director. So we are here to both tell you a little bit about how our past year went with our events and races for 2017. So we certainly consider you a partner with everything we do. We have our start of our two races obviously right up here at Dominion Power, so you guys get a lot of our beginning energy of our two main races up here at the Kitty Hawk End. So we certainly want to thank you for everything you do, as well as your time tonight to hear us and have us on your agenda. I think it'll change, right? So in 2006, the marathon first began. Irvin can speak to that for sure. And then OBSE, Outer Banks Sporting Events, was officially created in 2010. And we follow a four-part mission. So our mission of operation with Outer Banks Sporting Events is to organize and promote healthy sports competition, healthy living, and to provide financial resources for needed relief and support for our public education. So we have two beneficiaries locally here. All of our net proceeds stay right here in Dare County and help those in need through the Dare Education Foundation and the Outer Banks Relief Foundation. So we're proud to speak to that. And we also contribute to the economy of the Outer Banks of North Carolina with our events that bring, 80+% of our participants from out of town. So in 2017, in meeting that mission, we organized sporting competitions, so they're spaced throughout the year, primarily in the shoulder season. In the year in total, throughout our events, we had 7553 for our total participants. And with their guests, we take a survey at the time of registration, and our guests give us who they think they're bringing and where they're going to stay, and that's where these statistics come from. So their guests, in the full year, 24,170. So our gender here, you can tell, is sort of an even split, a little more female heavy in our demographics for runners in general and our participants on average. We consistently have a runner average age of 35 to 45. And again, 87% of our visitors, so in 2017, that was the amount of folks that came from out of town, and 23% of them were first time to the Outer Banks, which is great to get folks coming when it's someplace they have not been and seen. So we're proud to say that too.
Sure.
We're just going to tag team.
So what you guys see here, we've been very blessed to have representation from all 50 states and a little over 12 or 13 countries. So you see our Flying Pirate, 47 states represented in terms of folks coming in from out of town. Storm the Beach last year, 28. Obviously, our Tri, 29, and Marathon, 47. We've been very, very happy with the representation of all states, and we actually had a gentleman come to Flying Pirate this year, all the way from California, and he said, "Oh, I've heard about you guys. You've been on many different podcasts, things of that nature. We've been very happy with that turnout. In addition, we have the 18 countries represented, and you guys can kind of peruse some of this. Afghanistan, Canada, France, Kenya, Norway, great representation across the world coming out to run our races.
It is really cool on race weekend to see what a universal thing running is and sportsmanship. That's when we see the different representation like Ray spoke of. If you ever come to the finish line, you'll really see how it brings sort of a global situation together. So that's always great to see. So we do encourage healthy lifestyles. That's sort of why we're doing what we do. We had 1,146 registrants were local throughout our races, and that's 3% of Dare County residents. So we're always a little bit stoked up to get more of you out there. But I see a lot of you running in the streets, or I see a lot of people running when I'm training for something. And I know it's probably not every year, but we like to keep our locals in our registration base as well because they're great advocates for what's going on around the town. We have a Couch to 5K program through the Outer Banks Hospital, and last spring in the Flying Pirates, we had a challenge amongst government entities. Some of you may have done that. So where does this all sort of filter down and do the good we spoke of? In 2017, OBSE generated just over $50,000 for each organization. And since 2010 and its inception of OBSE, it's generated over $1 million for each charity. So exponentially, you can see how that helps out, and it's so great that it stays right here on the Outer Banks.
Sure. Now let's talk a little bit about economic impact. We were thrilled to announce last year our $50 million impact to the Outer Banks. And this kind of breaks down our number last year as it relates to Kitty Hawk. Over 1,400 participants who brought over 3 guests with them. That's a husband bringing mom and the kids, or wife bringing dad and the kids. That equated to 6,100 visitors at a $75 a day per diem, times 2.7 days gives us the total economic impact of $2.4 million, which is great as we talk about shoulder season economic development within this area. I can tell you without a doubt, talking to our partners here with the Hilton, with Southern Shores Realty, some others, and seeing the impact that we're making as an organization and that you guys are making by pushing out our races and things of that nature. We couldn't do it without you.
Yeah, and looking at the numbers when we made this presentation, there were probably 300 to 400 more people in 2017 that stayed right in Kitty Hawk versus Nags Head or Manio. You know, they can stay a lot of places because it's either by the start or the finish. So you're doing something to bring them right here to Kitty Hawk, so that is great. And then looking ahead, as far as what's to come, we've got our next big event is the triathlon, and that is down at the other end of the beach in Manio or Roanoke Island. But people stay up here all the way up to Corolla for that because it's a 2-day event, and we're looking forward to maybe making some slight changes to improve the runner experience, and we're working on that currently, and that is September 15th and 16th. So we're looking forward to that as our next matter of affairs, and we're getting ready for our athletes. And I think that's everything. As far as if there's questions, we're certainly open to them. And again, I'm Jenny, and this is Ray, and we're forever thankful for your venue on down through to the next town and having our races be a part of your community. So thank you very much, and thanks for your time tonight. And we're certainly open to questions.
Okay, I have one. How do you know that people are staying here versus somewhere else?
Sure.
Okay, you can.
I can answer that one. In our registration, we actually ask that question.
Okay.
Our folks will tell us exactly where they're staying, how many days they're staying, and how many folks they're bringing with them.
Okay, I was curious about that. Okay, good. So we are doing something right.
Jenny, I will tell you that, and I complimented the staff of Kitty Hawk for all they do to help facilitate this race. But I was at the 3.5 mile marker doing a water stop, not water stop, but a Century, and the truck came by right at the last runner, and I think it was like 47 minutes, and they were cleaned up and done, gone. which is remarkable for a race.
It really is. I know a lot of times I'll have to go from the start, sending off the runners, then go to the finish, orchestrate awards, do all that stuff, make sure everything's, a done deal. And I drive back up here because I live in Duck, and there is no evidence of a race at all, and it took
None.
months to get ready. So it is amazing how it all comes together and the efficiency of people that roll up their sleeves, volunteer or staff or anything. It's a lot to come together. So thanks for saying that. It means a lot.
Appreciate all y'all do.
Thank you.
Thank
If
you
we
very
get
much.
campaign signs picked up that quick, wouldn't that be nice?
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
All right, next we have public comment. Lynn?
No, sir. No one signed
Anybody?
up.
Anybody for public comment? All right, let the record show no one came forward. Do I hear a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right. We still don't have any removed, that's good. That means we're doing our homework, right? All right, next we have public hearing. First up is the fiscal budget for 2018-19 and the CIP. I make a motion, we go into public hearing for that purpose. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, we're in public hearing. Anyone here to speak on that?
No one signed up.
All right, anyone want to speak to the budget that we proposed and worked on in the workshop? No one. They're happy being taxed, isn't that wonderful? All right, let the record show no one came forward. I make a motion, we go back into regular session.
Second.
All right, did you get that, Lynn? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Council, what do you want to do with the budget?
I make a motion, we approve the adoption of the fiscal year 2018-19 budget ordinance and related documents as presented.
All right, let's have a second.
Second.
All right. Any questions, comments, notions? All right. There was one change that I had the manager look at. Did everybody get that?
Yes.
Okay. And it was just documenting where the money went for the improvements. All right.
Thank you for being so thorough.
That's all right. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. You have another budget. Now let's get the money. Next, we have a text amendment, Board of Adjustment established, and it's a public hearing. I motion we go into public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right. Anybody here for that?
No, sir.
Go ahead.
All right, for this is a proposed text amendment for section 42-70A. The current language states that the Board of Adjustment is established and shall consist of 5 members, including the chairperson, who shall be appointed by the town council. After reviewing it and speaking with the town clerk and manager, we felt like even though it's always been the practice that the town has always appointed town residents for the Board of Adjustment, it would probably make sense to put it in code so future councils would be bound to appoint only residents of the town to hear the town business. So you can see the proposed added language just states that the Board of Adjustment is established and shall consist of 5 members, including the chairperson, who shall be residents of the town. Members shall be appointed by the town council. And then further in section 42-70C, it states that in addition to the 5 regular members of the Board of Adjustment, Town Council may appoint 2 alternate members for terms of 3 years. Alternate members shall be appointed for the same term at the same time and in the same manner as regular members. It's staff's opinion, and I did speak with Casey about this, that where it says in the same manner as regular members would dictate that the alternates would have to be residents of the town also. Let's see, well, the Board of Adjustment's not specifically addressed in the Campbell Land Use Plan. It's logical that any person sitting as an elected or appointed official that has influence in the way Kitty Hawk moves forward with regards to development should be a resident of the town. The Planning Board heard this at its April 19th meeting, unanimously recommended approval. That turn it over if there's any questions.
Okay, this is the only board we have that didn't already have that caveat in it, correct? Okay. And just so you know, the question did come up on a different board, was somebody actually a resident? And that's what prompted us to look at this. So even though you assume things, sometimes that bites you where you don't want to be bit.
I have a question.
Huh?
Where's the definition for residence, resident, or what is the definition for resident?
I don't believe we actually have a specific
Is there a
definition.
Is there a customary definition
State of
that's
North
used,
Carolina
or do we need to put one in? That's my question. It says resident, and someone, there are people who feel that since they have owned property for 30 years, they can be considered a resident, but they don't, that's not their, it's not where they vote, it's not where they pay their taxes, it's not their home zip code, but they consider themselves residents. And I wonder if we need to clarify that.
Motor vehicle law states more than 6 months out of the year.
That's the motor, yeah. Do we follow, does the town follow that kind of rule?
Well, we do in everything else.
Okay, well then, I'm
People
happy.
that own out of town don't vote. We don't consider them residents for the purpose of taxation, other than for the beach nourishment. They were property owners, and that was a different issue entirely. So I'm going to say yes to your question, but you've asked the one night we don't have our lawyer here. Thank you for
Sorry.
that.
Nobody gave me a Casey won't be
Anyway.
here notice.
What I want to do is leave you with the question, or you, whichever. Ask the question, if there's a problem with residents, do we need to address it and bring it back forth? As it stands now, I'd like for us to move on with this. unless
As it
no one-
stands now, I'm happy. If
Okay.
its residence is clearly defined somehow, or
Okay.
or there is a definition we follow that is the definition.
All right, that said, is there anyone that wants to come forward and speak to this part of the public hearing? All right, I think we're done with you, Rob, thank you. Let the record show no one came forward. I move to go back into regular session.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right. Do we want to give me a motion for this?
I'll make a motion.
All right,
I move to adopt the proposed text amendment, amending subsections 42-70A regarding Board of Adjustments members be residents of Kitty Hawk. Town council finds that the proposed text amendment is consistent with the adopted CAMA land use plan and finds these amendments to be in the public interest.
does it have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Is there any further discussion?
Should have been that way the whole time.
Yes, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right. And we only have one question to be answered, but I think I know what the answer will be.
And I'm happy with whatever the answer is, just as long as we have something to refer to.
All right. Okay, public hearing next. We have one more. It has to do with text amendment for lot coverage bonus for permeable pavement. I motion we go into public hearing.
Second.
I hear a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, we're in public hearing. Rob?
All right. This one, the applicant has proposed the language attached to the staff report be added, which would allow for an additional physical lot coverage for property owners who wish to use permeable paving materials, which meet the requirements listed in the proposed language. These permeable paving methods allow stormwater water to infiltrate through the paving system. Currently, Kitty Hawk offers no bonus for using these materials, which include gravel, pavers, porous pavement, and even unimproved driveways are, by definition, all count as 100% lot coverage. The concept of this text amendment is that in no case would any property owner be able to exceed the current level of lot coverage, which is 30% for residential and 60% for commercial, regarding standard lot coverage considerations, which are structures, decks, pools, and impervious concrete. Should the property owner use a permeable pavement as defined in the proposed definition, They would then be able to use this material to exceed current lot coverages by 6% in residential uses and 12% in commercial zones. So for an example, for a residential example, a property owner developing a single-family home site in the BR1 could develop a site plan that uses 30% standard lot coverage, up to 6% permeable pavement coverage, or they could potentially have 25% standard lot coverage and up to 11% of the permeable pavement coverage, or any other combination that totals 36% or less of the lot coverage physical area and does not exceed 30% of the standard lot coverage. In previous proposals that have come forward for this permeable pavement material, the clogging of the pervious pavement has been a concern. This occurs when foreign materials restrict the ability of the water to flow through the pervious pavement. It could come in the form of soil or sand that's blown by wind onto the surface or brought to the surface by stormwater runoff. If this clogging is to occur and it blocks the water from flowing through the material, then it's effectively no longer pervious pavement. As the proposal is written, should any permeable pavement become clogged, it would be considered a permeable pavement failure, and by ordinance, the town could require the issue to be remedied. Currently, the other towns in Dare County do allow lot coverage bonuses in various forms. Duck allows permeable materials to be counted as 60% lot coverage. Kill Devil Hills allows for a reduction of 40 to 60% of the lot coverage calculation, and dependent on installation method used. And Nags Head allows these materials to count as 67% lot coverage. Manio does not count permeable paving materials towards their lot coverage calculations at all. The proposed use of the permeable pavement, as defined in the proposed language, is consistent with the regulations and guidelines for permeable pavement installations per the North Carolina DEQ Stormwater Design Manual. The NC DEQ recognizes the use of permeable pavement as a best stormwater management practice consistent with low-intensity development, which encourages on-site retention, infiltration, and treatment of stormwater. Allowing the property owners additional physical coverage area may prove to be an incentive to use this material on their properties, thus indirectly encouraging the implementation of the BMP. Having the permeable pavement rated at 100% pervious in the most intensely developed scenario with 30% lot coverage and 6% permeable pavement for residential, or 60% lot coverage and 12% permeable pavement for commercial, there would be no additional runoff to account for. It would be logical to assume that in most cases, if a property owner is developing a site utilizing the permeable pavement, it would be used for as much of the pavement area as feasible, which would likely mean reduced standard lot coverage and a decrease in runoff versus maximum standard lot coverage utilization. It should be noted that the language that's presented tonight differs slightly from what the planning board reviewed. The language added since the planning board reviewed is shown in red with a note from the applicant stating the reasoning for the additions. Additionally, staff has included the word decks under the definition of lot coverage. Kitty Hawk has always considered open decks as full lot coverage, but it's never been clearly articulated in the ordinance. And the applicant also actually caught today that although it was left out in the proposed language, in the proposed definition for lot coverage physical area, decks should be added in there as well, just to keep it consistent. And I will note that in the discussions with the applicant, it has been made apparent that his main interest in the proposed text amendment deals with the commercial zoning districts. So in an effort to ease some of the concerns that were presented by the planning board, he has communicated a willingness to remove the residential zones from the text amendment if council would desire to do so. And at its April 19th meeting, the planning board recommended denial of the proposed text amendment by a vote of 3-2. Their major concern being the usage of the permeable pavement in residential areas where, kind of between the highways and the beach, where the majority of the property owners are out-of-state owners and might not keep up with the maintenance of the permeable pavement as much as someone who lives here full-time or commercial use implementing this material. They're going to have an interest in making sure it's performing as it should. So that was where the root of their concern came from, was the absent residential property owners. That the applicant's here. I'll stand aside for any questions that council has of me.
The planning board didn't have any questions about whether or not accepting this, forget residential or commercial, would not increase density in structures and that sort of thing?
It did come up briefly, and the way that density is defined by ordinance is dwellings per acre, so it wouldn't technically have any effect on density as defined in the ordinance. It could potentially allow for a larger structure, a larger building, if they used a lot of the permeable pavement to make up for the additional lot coverage though.
So it could.
It could allow for, I guess, larger buildings on a specific site, but it wouldn't allow for additional, increased density. It would be a maybe more intensely developed area.
Well, okay, we have a Walmart. It was limited in the amount of property it could build onto, so its expansion was limited. Now, say they come back to us and say, we want to put permeable and increase our building size. Could they do that?
If they replaced some of their pavement with the permeable pavement area, the way this proposal is put forward, they could get up to 72% physical area.
They could increase the size of that building.
It could allow them to
Okay.
increase the building size.
All
So
right.
it does increase density.
Yeah.
And every
It does.
building would be eligible for an upgrade above their existing lot coverage at
Yeah,
that
I
point.
mean, we're not talking, existing buildings would be subject to increasing as well as building new buildings, just the same. And
The
that was the point I
restaurants
was
would
trying to make.
increase in square footage, potentially.
Yes.
I mean, not every restaurant owner wants to run out and increase his number of tables,
Right.
but it could be done, and every store could have expanded retail space, and every doctor could add another office for another doctor, and on and on.
All right. Any questions for Rob before I call for?
No, that was a question I had.
Yeah? Nothing?
Could this be retrofitted?
Well, when you say that it would be the responsibility of the person who puts this in, would that mean that there's some way of going and checking to see if this is working? Or would it be when water's standing and somebody rides by and say, this isn't draining? Is that the way this works?
As far as I'm aware, at this point, if this gets approved, I can study more into it. But the main telltale thing is if it's not performing, is if you see water standing in it. And as the applicant has pointed out to me as we were working on this to get it before the planning board, a lot of the materials, I believe, were actually rated at 200%. So it's actually accounting for more stormwater than if it were just left in a natural state. So for it to get to that failure point, it would have a lot of clogging to take place.
So there's no performance evaluation after a period of time, other than watch for standing water?
I mean, like a way that they drill down in to see if it is,
Right.
if the material underneath is performing, do they pour water to see if it's draining? Or is this just going to be a judgment call and I say it's working and
Right.
somebody says it's not?
I mean, if council wants to implement a testing schedule or maintenance schedule.
Oh, no,
that's something we could-
I don't want to do that. I was just wondering if there was a method of testing this other than just evaluating it by vision.
The applicant probably answer that one better than me. He's
Okay.
more knowledgeable in the material.
Well, we get the applicant up. Any more questions of Rob before, we'll call you back if we need you.
Sure.
All right. And I assume the applicant is
has signed up.
All right.
Ralph Calfee?
You're up.
For the record, my name is Ralph Calfee, the applicant. I could start out a comment on a couple of the questions that came up. First off, Walmart is in the BC3 district. The BC3 district is not proposed to be affected by this zoning text amendment. So other areas, commercial development, we can talk about what that does in terms of the development of the site, but it certainly does not include the BC3 district. It specifically excluded Kitty Hawk Woods, where there was no intent to allow additional lot coverage in the Kitty Hawk Woods section in residential. And then the other question that was under discussion was, well, who's responsible? Do you test? What do you do? Actually, the question does highlight, I think, the difference between residential and commercial development. In the commercial development, most of your stormwater work is engineered, not all, but most is. But nevertheless, the requirement here is that the work will be installed in compliance with the North Carolina Stormwater folks' regulations and standards. Their regulations and standards do require that the work is observed, is documented and certified by either an engineer or a certified installation inspector. And so that you do have comfort. You folks don't have to be out there watching to have comfort that it's being put in right and it's being certified by someone who is charged with the responsibility of doing that and is trained to do that. And then on the back end, once it gets built, the change that was added to the language after the planning board review was to identify and require that there be an annual test of the infiltration rate of the permeable pavement, and that those test results be provided to the town of Kitty Hawk. That means you don't have to proactively go out there and watch and check and see what it's doing. They're required to do it. The applicant, once they go through site plan approval, is required to do it, which means you automatically get the information every year, and if they don't do it, then in fact they're in violation of their site plan approval, and it's just like any other aspect of a site plan approval. If they're not complying, you can take whatever actions you find appropriate. So that specifically addresses those two questions. A couple of general comments, if I may. This effort did start out as being, actually when I approached it, I was looking at commercial development and potential lot coverage allowances. And then in discussion with the town planner and noting that you had recently done some work in the residential areas, then I kind of changed horses and thought, well, maybe what we do is we look at something more comprehensive and include a variety of districts for consideration. Now, that doesn't mean that you would necessarily want to, but at least it puts them on the table. And also, in the process of doing that, I changed from the way most of these ordinances have been written in the past. And typically in the past, it just said, if you use permeable pavement, you get a certain allowance. Didn't talk a lot about the districts. Talked more about the pavement performance. And what I did here was I set out the definitions of what happens with permeable pavement, but then identified the specific districts that are affected and how they're affected. Well, what that also has done, though, it actually makes it very easy to consider some or all of the ordinance as you're doing your consideration. Because there's a block of zoning districts that are commercial, and there's a block of zoning districts that are residential. And actually, it turned out very easy to consider them because each one of the headings identifies whether it's a residential or a commercial zoning district. So it makes piecewise consideration distinctly possible. In terms of lot coverage allowances, Back in the day, what happened with permeable pavement is they looked at replacement ratios. Like if you had turf stone, if you put in 3 square feet of turf stone, that counted as 2 square feet of coverage. And so they used those ratios and then didn't look at, well, what's the true impact on the development potential? And that's why in one spreadsheet that I gave you, identified that Kill Devil Hills, now they have a specific count at 75% lot coverage. They also have replacement ratios set up that go back to the old days when permeable pavements used to be partially permeable. Southern Shores, Duck, and Nags Head all have replacement ratios, but they do not have a cap. Well, I've indicated to you that their cap in lot coverage is probably somewhere around 75 to 78% based on what you can do and how you can do your designs. Because when you put in a building, you can't just say, well, I get 10% more lot coverage, I can put in a 10% bigger building, because you still got to park the building. So it doesn't work that way. But the bottom line is the other communities typically are allowing 75 to 78% lot coverage in the commercial districts if you use permeable pavement. For Kitty Hawk, I propose 72%, which is certainly conservative compared to them. And in Kitty Hawk, it requires that anything over the base amount of 60% would be with what is a minimum of 100% permeable pavement. And in fact, the pavements that are approved by the Division of Water Quality all have what they characterize as 200% permeability, and that they will take their own rainfall as well as the rainfall runoff from an adjacent area that's of equal size. And so the standards that we now use have a much higher permeability on pavement than they used to. Residential, we're looking at current allowances of anywhere from 30 to 40%. Southern Shores allows 30% with no increase. Kill Devil Hills doesn't allow an increase, but they also start at 40%. Duck, Nags Head, both Duck and Nags Head allow higher than what I've proposed for Kitty Hawk, and they also do not have a limit, so you can, however you can make the site work, you may be able to jack up your coverage significantly in the residential zones in those communities, but not in Kitty Hawk. So to wrap this up, when all this was said and done, what I'm proposing is that the permeable pavement that's used has a minimum of 100% permeability. All the DEQ standards are what they call 200%. They recognize and allow that some of us may come up with designs that don't fit the book, but that they will consider them and review them and determine whether in fact you're complying with the regulations and with the intent of the regs. One of the things that they do require is the pavement surface permeability is 50 inches of water an hour at a 4-inch head. So if you put 4 inches of deep water on this permeable pavement, then it has to be able to absorb 50 inches per hour of that water. So if you maintain it at 4 inches, then you'll have to put in the equivalent of 50 inches, which is a lot of water. A typical very, very, very heavy rainfall is about 8 or 9 inches per hour, and those usually only last 5 to 10 minutes when they occur. So the standard is really quite high. I think that the fixed coverage limit, the maximum that's stated, is much clearer and is much more well-defined than the replacement ratios, where it's just a matter of what anybody could work out and figure out how to make work. And then the annual testing, I think certainly does give an enforcement mechanism where you really don't have to do anything other than confirm that they're submitting their documentation. And when they submit the documentation, you will know if there is any enforcement action that's required, and the ordinance encourages the applicant with the obligation to do that, to fix anything that isn't right. which is not unlike all the rest of our site plan improvements. We're supposed to keep it up, and if it doesn't, if we don't, then clearly the town has a right to enforce it. And so I think that's the kind of the gist of it. Be glad to answer any questions.
I do. Permeable pavement is only as good as what's under it being able to absorb.
That's great.
So this engineering takes into account the kind of dirt that's underneath the permeable pavement?
Yes, sir. There's two things that happen. One is most permeable pavements have an underlaying of open rock or gravel, and that stuff's all specified in the normal DOQ standards. I have had many discussions with them over the fact that a lot of our beach sands have a permeability that is amazingly high. And while they don't specifically say you can use beach sand, because there's only a few communities really have, and a few locations really have that, they have acknowledged that on application they will consider just plain the fact that you're on beach sand, in which case what you would do is you put your permeable pavement over a receiving layer of rock or gravel that might be 4, 6, or 8 inches thick, which then lets the water go into the underlying sand. But all of this we have to evaluate before we can get approval on our proposed systems. We have to do soil sampling and do permeability tests on the underlying soil.
Yeah, well, when we built the firehouse, that was one of the big issues. The size of the building on the size of the lot required, well, gravel and webbing
Were you talking
in
about
consideration. Huh?
Yeah. Well, there were a lot of issues about when that station
sure.
was built at that location.
Well, that's the reason I raised the question, because,
Well, including the fact that a lot of the soils back in there, I just lived right around the corner from it. Some of the soils back there weren't really sweet for stormwater infiltration.
not at all.
They were not at all. That was done strictly on a local basis.
I know, but we have to consider that,
Oh,
especially
absolutely.
when you're talking residential back in the village, for example.
Yeah, and
It wouldn't work everywhere.
again, that does highlight the difference in commercial and residential, that you get a much better look at a commercial project.
All right, counsel?
I'd have one more question. Is there kind of like I'm going to call it a shelf life of one of these areas of permeable pavement that say 10 years down the line that the sediment and that you feel like that it's going to be replaced, or is this a perpetual and it's going to drain perfect as it was installed from day one perpetually, or how does it work? Because I've seen one of them it was replaced here in Kitty Hawk, and they took the pavers out and went back with regular concrete, I guess, and left just enough that, where they wanted, but it seemed like it failed. It's been there a while, though.
Yeah, the lifetime of permeable pavement is a function of a variety of issues. One of the most significant ones is maintenance. And that is the reason for the annual testing will tell you if you're not adequately maintaining and if the performance of the pavement is going down, it's going to show. You don't have to wait until you get 10 years down the line and say, well, this whole system has failed. Well, annual testing will tell you that it's failing, and they'll be submitting those results every year. We do have some training and some understanding for owners. For example, the marketplace was paved with some permeable pavement, and then a year or two later, they went in and seal coated it to restripe it. Well, so much for the permeable pavement, at least in the areas where they did that. But in general, the life can be quite good. There's a characteristic, though, that affects it considerably. Some permeable pavements, like permeable concrete, it's concrete and it's pretty fixed. And if it gets badly fouled, it is very hard to do anything with other than tear it out. On the other hand, there are other permeable pavements like our famous old turf stone and some of the other pavers that have gravel strips around it and have gaps. The nice thing about those is if they get fouled, you can vacuum out the bad surface of an inch or two of soil and replace it, and you're back to square one. So some of the older, less exotic forms, in fact, are easier to operate and maintain, and certainly easier to correct if they get a problem.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? No. All right. Don't go away yet, but I'm going to ask, is there anyone else that wants to speak? We're still in public hearing. All right, I didn't think so. When we go back, we'll discuss this, but I have to ask this question beforehand because I asked Rob to give us two proposals, one dealing with your original proposal, which included residential, and then another proposal which might take out residential. Because that's a substantial change if we were to do that, would you have objection to that?
I will not object to it, and if you want to pull residential for potential further consideration or resolution of issues, I mean, that, to me, that makes
Okay,
certainly-
so what I'm basically saying is,
the kind of thing that you can.
if council is okay with it being in commercial, but not residential, that would be a motion, but it would go against your initial application.
And-
You're okay with that?
And I would be fine with that, yes.
All right, I just wanted to make sure the record showed that because it's an important step for us. All right, anyone else? Let the record show no one else came forward. Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you.
All right, I motion we go back into regular session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Discussion time or motion time? Your choice.
I'm ready to make a motion, Mr. Mayor.
All right, make your motion,
This
please.
will be applying to commercial zones only. I move to adopt the proposed text amendment amending subsections 42-1, 42-250BC1, 42-251BC2, 42-253BH1, 42-276VC1, 42-277VC2, and 42-278VC3, allowing lot coverage bonuses as described in the text amendment for the use of permeable pavement that meets the requirements listed in the proposal. Town Council finds that the proposed text amendment is consistent with the adopted Cameron Land Use Plan and finds these amendments to be in the public interest.
Second.
Your second? Okay. Discussion. Any discussion?
I was not for the residential.
Okay, and this, let that
Yeah,
out.
and but I'm just, this is the alternative to me to possibly go along with this. I think just because of the fact that, we're a low-density beach community, puts me against the residential. The water tables are high. There's all kinds of things, reason why to not vote against residential. Commercial, I think we need to be as user-friendly to our commercial community as possible. And I think this is a good compromise.
The
How about-
commercial will be monitored, and that's what's
Well, that's
important.
part of it. Monitoring is part of it.
And consistently, and when a residence, a lot of times, when a residence gets a new owner, there's a lot of things they don't learn about it. When a commercial development gets a new owner, there are a lot of things they do learn about it, but they are also commercial, and there are expectations that they will live up to.
Okay, I have a question about the VCR, the village commercial. Because, like residential, we're thinking low water tables and things of that nature.
Take it out.
Village commercial, do we want that, or should that be taken out as well?
I would not like to see this back in the village. I don't think it's going to work. I don't think the soil with our water table right now and still rising, I think it's, I think
Well,
we should.
thank you for bringing that up, because I agree with that.
Yes,
Yeah.
take it out.
So I would like to amend my motion taking out the village commercial
Thank you.
part of it, please.
And thanks for bringing that up, Gary.
Thank you.
And there are 3 different village commercials there, Lynn, okay? And we're taking all 3 of those out.
Yes, sir.
All right, and you have an amended motion. Irvin?
I second.
All right. Any further discussion?
I would just like to have it on the books that I'm like Irvin, that I'm opposed to any of this going on back in the village, but I do feel like that this can work out in, the areas of the beach where the sand is more permeable, and I'd like the way Ralph presented this to where the applicants are going to have to maintain and provide us with the data on how it's working so that we don't have to go out and do it ourselves. And so that's the reason I don't have a problem with
The
commercial.
only other thing I want to add for the record is when we're taking it out of the village, both commercial and residential, we're doing it also for this, other places that are residential, up Seascape, places like that, because of an enforcement. It requires enforcement. We don't have the resources, and I'm not planning to tax people to get the resources necessary to do residential or private property type thing. Commercial is a different story altogether. This takes it away from that.
That's right.
We all agree on that?
I do.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any further discussion? The motion is? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Ralph, go put your parking in. What do we got next?
Basketball.
Oh, yeah, okay, planning. We have some, doesn't everybody love homeowners associations? When they have problems, they come to government to
Solve them.
Yeah, to fix them. All right. Of course. 2 encroachment agreements under planning. Ralph?
All right, the first one in front of you is for 4113 Turkle Ridge Road.
Can I ask this question? And I would have asked this, but is there a reason, it's the same thing. Is there a reason you can't do both of them at the same time? Is that a problem?
We can.
Lynn?
We can.
Wait a minute, Lynn has to,
Oh, I'm okay with that,
you're okay?
yes. But I do believe the basketball goals, we're in a different spot, though.
2 different locations.
2 different locations, 2 different addresses.
But they're still on the right of way? Okay.
Yeah, so it's 2 separate encroachment agreement requests. That's why we brought them forward as 2 separate ones.
All right, you do it whatever way you want. We'll take care of it.
I guess I'll put them in together. The reports are essentially identical. One of them is for 4113 Turkle Ridge Road. The other is 4028 Turkle Ridge Road. And I should note that the one at 4113, the basketball goal itself is placed within the right-of-way across the street adjacent to 4186 Turkle Ridge Road, which is owned by the state. Both of the encroachment agreement requests are for basketball goals that are permanently affixed in the ground. The town code allows encroachments on right-of-way with an agreement with the town per section 36-3, which states that no encroachment shall exist in the right-of-way of any street located in the town until such time as the encroaching party has entered into an encroachment agreement with the town. Said encroachment agreement shall be entered consistent with the policy set by the town from time to time. Staff was able to locate the following policy on encroachment agreements. And I will go ahead and list off the code enforcement officer's responses to the conditions along with this. It states, be it ordained by the Town Council of Kitty Hawk that the Kitty Hawk Town Code Enforcement Officer shall follow the following policy considerations in determining whether and to what extent to recommend an encroachment agreement. So the first one states that the encroachment should not create a danger to the general public by virtue of its size or density. The code enforcement officer stated that the basketball goals would not create a danger to the general public by virtue of their size or density. B, an encroachment allowed should not be higher than what would impede a driver of a standard motor vehicle from seeing throughout the right-of-way beyond the encroachment. Response is that the basketball goals would not impede a driver from seeing through the right-of-way. C, an encroachment should be constructed of a material that will break upon impact with a vehicle moving at minimal speed. For example, 10 miles per hour or 10 miles per hour or greater. The response is the basketball goals are made of metal tubing and would not break away when hit by a vehicle at minimal speed. D, the encroachment should not impede the town's ability to maintain the right-of-way. The response is basketball goals would impede the town in maintaining the right-of-way and that they would limit the mowing in the areas of the goals. E, the encroachment should not impede the various utility suppliers' abilities to maintain their easements. The basketball goals will not limit utility suppliers' ability to maintain their easements. And F, in no case should an encroachment be located closer than 36 inches from a fire hydrant. And the response is that the basketball goals are not closer than 36 inches from a fire hydrant. It was the recommendation of the code enforcement officer that the encroachment agreements be denied as conditions C and D are not satisfied. I believe one property is here if you have any questions for him. That's really all I've got. If there's any other questions of me as well.
Okay, the only thing that I want to bring up, and it kind of doesn't apply tonight, and it says, B, an encroachment allowed should not be higher than what would impede a driver of a standard motor vehicle from seeing through the right-of-way beyond the encroachment. We either need to add something or change that to include the fact that whatever is encroaching on the right-of-way should not extend over the highway, such that a high-rise vehicle such as a cash truck or, a box truck would hit. In one case, we have a situation where the goal itself extends across the road and a high vehicle would have to swerve across the main center. So, and we've been dealing with that for a long time on the road I live on too. So I would like for you to, I don't think we can deal with that tonight, but I'd like for you to look at maybe changing something and bringing that back to us.
Sure.
All right. Council, do you have any questions for anybody? No? Motion?
Already, we don't comply. We're talking about encroachment agreements. We're not complying with C and D right off the bat, the breakaway pole
Correct.
and being in the town right of way
Correct.
on both of these instances. Not against anybody at all playing basketball. Not against that at all, but again, you know where I'm coming from. I'm looking at the safety factor involved here also.
Make a motion.
I have one question.
Oh, okay.
One of the issues is that an encroachment would not impede the town's ability to maintain the right-of-way. Well, if it's on the homeowner's property and the homeowner is maintaining his property, why would it be an issue that the town would, I'm confused there. The town doesn't maintain, well, I live on a state road, but the state does not maintain the property in front of my house.
Well,
They mow mine.
yeah, they do. They come down there and mow.
Yeah, they
No, they
mow.
don't. They come down the hill and they lift it. They lift their little
they maintain the house.
That's
lower
because
thing
Tom's got
and they
it mowed so
drive right
tight they
on by.
can't find the grass.
They have never cut all they have done is scrape up the zip strips and throw them into the yard.
Well, okay.
But that's,
Lynn, that's a different question. We're not into that.
But that's my question with why this is, could that, if an encroachment agreement were prepared to be acceptable and the homeowner assumed responsibility for the maintenance of the right-of-way, would that then eliminate that particular point from consideration?
If that was the only point, it might
If that was
have
the
merit.
only, okay.
But it's not even the point today.
I understand
Okay.
that, but I'm looking at one point at a time.
All right. Applicant? Who are you for the clerk, please?
I'm 4113 Tarkle.
And
Department, yeah.
Art.
The two things that are on there that I did, sort of looked at with this issue is that we've had a basketball goal before, and it's the cheap one that has the plastic on the bottom, that you sit out there, and every time the wind blows hard, it blows over, et cetera. And our access at our house, because the way the lines come in, it's not something I can put on my own property. And I know it sort of doesn't meet what your safety sort of concepts would be, but this is a $1,000 basketball goal. It's made out of a steel 6x6 tube that's in the ground. And I'm not saying somebody hits it. I mean, it's off the road. I don't know if the picture was of my house or not.
And it's a great-looking basketball goal.
Yeah, it is. Very nice. The two things with it is that, and this is my house, or my basketball goal. The issue with it is that initially it was overhanging. It was just my measurement was off when I initially put it up, and then have moved it back off the road. The road is, the grass itself, the easement and stuff is all cut by on our own property, meaning that I maintain it, but really we have a gentleman that runs down the street with his riding mower every week and cuts the grass. Now, there is maintenance that's done with the trees and stuff that comes through every once in a while, as well as the other stuff, but we've sort of moved it out of the way of anything that would be, again, it sits up 10 feet high, and really the only thing is the post, which is actually all the way back now in the tree line. So actually, the trees are actually, you don't get a good idea, but actually the trees are sort of overhanging the goal, so it's stuck far back. So that maintenance of that section of the road is actually, you could drive a truck under it if you wanted to. And from a safety standpoint, I just feel like if a car comes and hits one of those cheap goals, it's going to fall down onto the car. This ain't going to fall down. If somebody hits it at 10 miles an hour, it's going to be dented, but it's not going to fall onto somebody or onto something, which has always been the risk with these El Cheapo goals, is that they actually, the wind blows and they can fall over onto a neighboring car. They can blow down and blow around. They also are made out of cheap metal, and with our weather, in a year they're half rusty, and then you got that risk sort of running around. This item that we sort of chose is something that looks good in the community. It's not something that is an eyesore, and we've gotten it where it's off the road enough, we felt like, and it's really the homeowners association that started this whole thing,
We're well aware of that.
and hence why we moved out of Southern Shores with some other challenges and the frustration of now being in another association that seems to be giving us headaches over, and it's not just this, as you know, but, we try to maintain it and hopefully we'll see. The challenges I think you recognize is, I don't want my kids inside playing video games and watching movies and doing stuff, and trying to raise your kids to be as active as possible as part of our community is really, as a challenge of parents, as you know, and this is one of those kind of things you can say, hey, come on, let's go outside and shoot some ball. We try to make things as active. Of course, we follow along with whatever you tell us to do, but we hope that you see it's not a safety risk. I truly don't believe. In fact, I think it's safer than any other thing that you could put up there, and that it doesn't really encroach upon anybody's ability to go and prune or do any kind of cutting or anything in the area the way that I have it set back in there.
I got a question. It seems to me that C is the only one that I have a problem with, that is not meeting. D, the guy maintains his stuff, it's not.
Same way.
Well, we can, essentially, they submitted them as two different ones, so we'll do a motion on each one.
Or are they constructed different? See, now we need to know,
It's two different basketball goals.
You have a picture of it.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know if that'll break away. We don't have anybody to tell me if it's going to break away. According to our code enforcement, neither of these are going to break away, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, my question of Mr. Metcalf is there possible just on the bottom to put a breakaway on the bottom of that pole? It comes in sections. Could you possibly,
One steel tube.
huh?
One steel.
That's just
It's
one
4
long-
bolts anchored with
Just
4
one.
concrete bolts in the ground. That's all.
Okay.
It's anchored to the ground with plate.
Just have to modify it.
Right.
I do think it would break. I don't think, now, it's not gonna break at 10 miles an hour because somebody already hit it at 10 miles an hour. So, and it's got a big dent in it, but, not a big dent, but a dent in it. But somebody back, because I put it across my driveway, somebody backed out of my driveway into it and dented the pole and dented their bumper. So, it's just 4 anchor bolts. I don't know how you would make it, and it's one post, meaning it's all one assembly.
Is there any kind
I'm trying to find a way to make this thing
Yeah.
work for you.
I mean, what we have is we have pretty much a set of rules we need to go by here. And, if we don't, and then an accident was to happen, I wake up and I hear somebody seriously hurt by a basketball goal that we didn't, have it break away, I feel terrible. So
The
that's,
breakaway would be more risk, that something big and heavy falling on somebody would be worse than something that's.
Breakaway absorbs energy, just like a breakaway utility pole, light pole.
yeah, it's,
That's the reason they're there.
yeah, that decision was made by whoever made the ordinance that we need to go by, I feel like, I don't think anybody up here, I mean, we'd love for you to have a basketball goal, but, we've got a set of rules here, kind of.
Is there any kind of crash barrier
C's
or
pretty
crash
bad.
absorbing outer layer that could be added to it?
But it wouldn't still stop
You
the
know,
impact.
We got,
We've got,
Yeah.
we've got something in front of us, we have to follow the rule.
Follow the rule.
If he wants to modify it, he's certainly capable of doing that and bringing it back to the code enforcement to see if it meets the code. But at the moment, it does not. And just like you said, if you don't follow the rule and somebody does get hurt, then we do become liable. We didn't bring this up, we didn't want to get involved. You got your own problems out there, if you could just keep them out there, we'd be real happy about that. All right? All right, I'd like for us to bring a motion up here. Let's do them one at a time so that we get it right. The first one was 4028 Tarkle Ridge Road. That's the goal that is under the road.
no, the first one's, we're looking at A right now.
Right.
Okay, well, do the first one then.
Right here.
Doesn't matter. The rule is going to deny them both.
All right, move to deny the requested encroachment agreement for the basketball goal within the town right-of-way at 4113 and 4186 Talker Ridge Road as conditions C and D of the policy are not met as noted by the code enforcement officer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, were none. Now, boards and committee appointments, it must be June. All right, first thing we need to do is take care of the planning board. The clerk is, give you a motion with some blanks. What?
Did you get 8B also?
8B?
Okay.
Did you include the address in the?
Yeah, that was done with both of them. That one motion took care of both of them. Did it not? No? Okay. Got a man over here trying to confuse me. Let me-
Well, you got different addresses on there.
Sit back.
She said 6, but
It's two different motions, there's two different basketball goals. So you need to have two different motions, don't you?
unless you included the address in the first motion.
I'll include 4028 in the first motion also then.
Yes, you did.
Yes.
Heard it.
Right here. Right there. The first motion was 4113 and 4186. The second one is 4028. Did we have
4113.
Yes.
41?
That was 8A, but then you got AB as a different address, different basketball goal. Deny both of them, how about that, would that be?
Yeah, go ahead and make a motion.
I see where you're going
Yeah, I
with
see
that.
it now, here,
It's two different items.
here. Yeah, you're right.
All right,
Why is 4113 and
Why is there two?
4186?
two different addresses.
The motion for the 4113 included the other address because that's the one where the basketball goal is across the street at 4186 on the state property.
Okay, do the
So do we, all right, I move to deny the request of encroachment agreement with the basketball goal within the town right-of-way at 4028 Talker Ridge Road as conditions C and D of the policy are not met as noted by the code enforcement officer. How about that?
second. All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We got it, didn't we?
All right, no, that's good. You kept it straight. I thought you did them both at the same time. That was confusing. Okay, can we move on to the planning board?
Please.
All right, we have some people to reappoint, and we have a vacant position, and we're going to move some people, I think, on the Board of Adjustment. So let's start with the motion to reappoint or appoint regular planning board members.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Brian Parker and Dusty Rhodes as a regular member on the planning board with a term of office to expire June 30, 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right, next motion would be to reappoint somebody as an alternate on the planning board.
I'll make a motion to reappoint Gary Muir as an alternate on the planning board with a term of office to expire June 30th, 2020.
All right. And I should have said, are there any other nominations? Hearing none, does that have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Now we're making a motion to appoint somebody to the unexpired term of Ms. Jan Collins on the planning board as an alternate.
Make a motion to appoint Matt Spencer to an unexpired term of Jan Collins, alternate on the planning board with a term of office to expire on January 30th, 2019.
Did you say January or June?
Excuse me, June.
Okay,
I thought it said June, but whatever.
all right. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, does that have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. And next, we're working on chair and vice chair for the planning board.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to reappoint John Richardson as chairman and Brian Parkin as vice chairman of the planning board for a one-year term.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, does that have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? None? Board of Adjustments, appointments, reappointments. And first, we need to reappoint as regular members. Anyone?
Make a motion to reappoint Chris Jenkins and Christine Buckner as a regular member of the Board of Adjustment with a term of office to expire June 30th, 2021.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Regular members on the Board of Adjustment, appoint or reappoint with a term of office to expire June 30.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to appoint David Hines as a regular member on the Board of Adjustments with a term of office to expire June 30th, 2021.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, does that have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. And then we have an alternate Board of Adjustment with the term of office to expire June 30, 2021.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to reappoint Timothy Fish as an alternate on the Board of Adjustments with a term of office to expire June 30, 2021.
Any further nominations? Hearing none, does it have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Now we need chair and vice chair.
Make a motion to appoint David Morton as chairman and Charlotte Walker as vice chairman of the Board of Adjustment for 1 year or until a successor is named.
Is there another nomination? Hearing none, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, Recreation Committee appointments. We're reappointing as regular members to the Recreation Committee. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to reappoint Paul Hendrigus and Tom Hefner as a regular member of the Recreation Committee with a term of office to expire June 30th, 2022.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, is that have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. I believe that takes them, does it?
That's it.
All right, good. Thank you. Well, you got to go through it. Next, then we have a donation of a dune walkover on town-owned property. Do you want to take this?
Yeah, that's fine. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The town staff was approached by Mr. James Williams, who resides at 4020 North Virginia Dare Trail. The property owner has offered to donate his time and materials to construct a dune crossover on town-owned property located at 4019 North Virginia Dare Trail. The construction of the dune crossover would be constructed in accordance with the building code, and of course your CAMA permits and all the environmental agencies that would need to approve that would have to do so. The town's building department would review the plan and permit the construction of the dune walkover. Before Mr. Williams got too far involved in the process, I felt it would be good to bring it before council first to see if it's even something that the council is willing to entertain. If you look at the map, Mr. Williams does live directly across the street. Where it's highlighted there, this is actually 417 where it's highlighted, but it's all town-owned stretch of beach there. There's you can see a little beach access area there that's a cut in the dune currently. He wants to construct a 4 or 5 foot walkover, so him and his neighbors and whoever else would like to use it in the future to get over the sand a little easier, and then he would donate the walkover to the town upon completion. So that was his request. If it's something the town would like to do, town staff would work with Mr. Williams to make it happen. And as I said, it would be his cost 100% and then given to the town upon completion for maintenance as well in the future.
And Public Works is all right with all this?
Public Works what?
And Public Works is all right with taking over the maintenance. Our Public Works will then be responsible for the maintenance of it.
Yeah, we would, if we were going to do this, so we'd obviously, there would be no stipulations on the town to keep it in case of a storm or anything. I would make sure we have something in writing basically saying we appreciate the donation, and if there's any damage or something in the future and we choose not to replace it, that we're not obligated to.
Is this?
It's obviously more maintenance for the town, and I guess if you wanted to look at it from other people may request to do the same thing up along the beach, but not all the properties, are owned by the town. There's a large portion of them, but this just happens to be town-owned property.
Willie, what do you think?
Do we know what kind of walkover we talk? I mean, are we talking like a mat, or are we talking about?
A wooden deck, wooden structure.
Structure.
Is what he's proposed, yeah.
And we've done this before. You know that, right?
No, I did not.
Yes, we have.
We have.
Front of the dunes.
Further north.
Also, the one in front of the dunes, not the dunes, but the big condos down there.
Yeah.
We did one of those years ago.
Sea dunes.
We did that?
I believe we did.
I hope not.
I
They're
hope not,
public.
because it's got no trespassing on it.
They're not public.
I believe, you need to check back. I'll call Cliff, but I believe we worked with a guy to do that.
They have rebuilt them though.
Huh?
So they have rebuilt them and posted them.
Yeah, but wait a minute now. I mean, but if we agree for this one, it becomes the town and then it washes in, I'm not saying that they can go back and put a private one there and post it. I mean, if that's what happened at where we're just talking about.
Well, I don't know about that one, but I'm talking about the one that's north of where this is.
It's between Hawks and Wilkins. I think it's
Okay,
40,
yeah.
28.
And it was put on town property. It was built by a homeowner, and then we took it over, both for public use, anybody can use it, and any future maintenance, which means if it's repairable, we do that. If not, we don't. It's our call. They're building it. It's public property once it's built. Absolutely. And yes, we are maintaining it because you can't really expect the person that's across the street to do that.
No, you know, my thing was I'm like, I don't want years down the road to see, you know, somehow it ends back up and, oh, this is mine, you know, but that's what.
What are your thoughts on this, Willie?
As of what, we haven't done anything to the one we took a couple of years ago yet, other than just empty the trash and things like that. Maintenance wise, unless a storm hits it, it's not a lot right now. If we do get a storm that tears it out, then it could be something, and there again, we could choose not to put it back because it is our property. I do note that it's pretty close to a couple other accesses, so I don't know that it's necessary per se, my own personal opinion, but as far as the maintenance goes, it's not that big a task on us.
One of the problems we've had along this stretch, though, is we have a fence. And that fence doesn't have any access across it.
It does in certain, there's a few breaks,
There's a few breaks.
and that's one of the ones he wants, it's.
There's a small
I had
break.
closed them up at one time, and he is one that got us to open it back up.
Okay. I guess where I'm going with this is, that was open at one time, now it's closed?
No, it's open right now.
It's open right now?
Yes, sir.
All right.
My only issue would be is height and keeping clear sand, because we do struggle keeping Lillian clear. So that would be the biggest maintenance issue than it.
But otherwise, right now, you can't close that off without running a risk of something here, this fellow fussing at you.
That would be it.
Building something gets you across that problem, and you can keep the dune intact without people crossing it.
Yes, sir. And really, the only people that use it there is people who rent his house.
All right, anyway, council, what do you want to do?
Once again, now, we're not talking about a great big elaborate, like, I mean, are we just talking about just a walkover, a 4-foot planks going, I mean, or are we talking about a bunch of steps going down? I mean, what are we looking at?
It's really, on
here?
this section, from looking at it, it's really not a big steep slope. So it'll probably be more a couple steps and then a 4
But
or
we're not-
6 foot.
We're not talking handicap ramp and observation
Yeah.
platform.
No, we're just talking
We're
about a
just
hard
talking
surface to
up
get
down.
over. It'll have to be built, you know, I'll have him design it. He's got to get it permitted. We'll make sure that it's nice and it meets our criteria
Yeah.
with handrails and things of that nature. It'll have to meet all those things. So probably 4 to 6 feet, whatever it is we want to require. I mean, the whole point is just, I think, to get the people over.
Correct. Not
But it won't
big-
have a big observation like it does
I
at
mean, we
Lillian
don't
and all
want
that.
something like we have across from the Black Pelican in a year.
No.
I mean, that's what I'm getting at. I don't want to see us going somewhere and then, you know, I don't have a problem with just stair-stepping a couple walkways
That's all
up
it's
just to
gonna be.
get to the top of the dune and then they can go.
That'll be all it is.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Oh,
Now, wait a minute. There's going to be steps up across the dune.
Across the dune.
And the dune is fairly wide now, and then back down.
And maybe a couple steps back down.
Steps down.
Yeah.
So it's not just going to stop at the top of the dune and you walk across the dune. You with me?
Well, a bunch of them down there are like that, like Blariot and some of those, you just kind of go up and then you're on the beach and you just take off walking. There's really not the other side. I mean, all up there and, Wilkins Street and, for example, they go up, but nothing, you know, it's There's really nothing takes you over the other
But the
side.
point here is to get people across the dune so they're not beating the dune down.
Right.
And if you stop it at the top of the dune, which is not what was planned, that's not what they're talking, this would be a walkover similar to what you have at the Pelican.
I have no problem with the walkover. And I will just tell you that we need to check on in front of the condos down there, because I think right after Isabel or during Isabel's time, I think that we had something to do with those people, and I thought that was ours, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, I agree with you.
If that is the case, they don't need to have a no trespassing sign on that.
I remember something, but I don't remember.
Okay, well, let's deal with this right tonight, okay? Do you want to do this or not?
I'm fine.
Yes.
All right, then, let's see. Oh. I make a motion to approve the donation request for a dune walkover at 4019 North Virginia Dare Trail, and add that it follows all town codes, county, whatever else regulatory requirements are required. Does it have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
He's getting tired. Didn't hear past his bedtime. All right, town manager. You got anything else?
Just June 23rd, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., there's going to be a hazardous waste day in the town where you can take your stuff. You got to take it to Manio at 1018 Driftwood Drive if you have any hazardous waste materials around your house.
Andy?
What's that date again?
Yes.
Can you describe what that is? Because a lot of people have asked me, is gasoline a part of that?
We'll have to, I believe it is, yes. Gasoline, paints,
Okay.
batteries, pesticides.
Pesticides is the big one. Nobody will use it.
Gasoline you can take to the recycling center right now.
Oil. You
Huh?
can take gasoline too?
Yes.
I thought it
I
was
didn't
just
know you
used
could take-
oil.
I thought you could take oil. I didn't know we could take gas.
And antifreeze.
Oh, okay.
And
Good.
antifreeze.
Well, that's,
Okay.
well, everybody in Kitty Hawk can take your gas to the recycle center.
Yeah.
What was the date again, Andy?
June 23rd. It's in Manio, but there may be some things I guess they could take right to our recycling center, right?
Just pretty much,
The basics.
yeah.
Yeah, this is a little bit more extensive. We'll post it on the town website to let everybody know what exactly it is that they'll take
Okay.
on June 23rd.
June 23rd.
Also, several weeks ago, we had a dedication of the little red mailbox for the child that was lost there, Wesley. Appreciate the mayor, he did a great job. He said some very good words for everybody, and so we've kind of hopefully come to a closure on that for now. And there's a red mailbox down at the Lillian Street access, and it's where you kind of write messages of hope and anything that you want to write in that. And there's a group of volunteers that are going to be maintaining that. So that's down at the Lillian Street access. That was a nice little ceremony that they did several weeks ago. Other than that, that's all I have this evening. And just Lynn, Tom, I'm glad that everything, you guys made it, you guys are in good shape for the most part. And we're glad that you didn't get any more hurt than you did. So we're thankful for that.
All right. We don't have a town attorney, so we'll skip that. Town council. Jeff, will you start us off?
Sure. Well, as we know, there was a fire at Lynn's home and Tom's, and I want to thank the fire department and all the other fire departments in the area and all the police and everybody that came together to get this fire put out so they didn't do any more damage than what it did. And I'm also glad to see Tom's is healing, and so is Lynn, and I wish you guys the best to getting back in your home. That's all.
And I just want to say I have made many comments about how wonderful our staff is and our various departments and the fire department and police department. I've always been very proud to live in Kitty Hawk and I felt comfortable and safe. Well, after May 11th, I know what it's like to be visited by all these public servants who took care of things and kept my whole house from burning down. and kept me safe and put up with me holding my dog for 4 hours. And the EMS that took my husband down to the hospital, because although I was, my hand was charbroiled, Tom's leg was French fried. He got hit with oil, I got hit with flames. But we did get out, and we still have our house. And for an emergency interim measure, we are still going to live in our property in an abbreviated form of housing. And this way, we'll be home, because Kitty Hawk is home. We'll be in our neighborhood. And all the people who have helped us so far, I am so grateful. And I just can't say anything more than thank you for being professionals, knowing your job, doing it well, arguing with me and keeping me safe. And I know now from firsthand experience that everybody in Kitty Hawk is in very good hands. And I also want to extend my thanks to all the other towns who sent their people up to help us. Because when you looked up and down Kitty Hawk Road, you saw nothing but official vehicles every direction you looked. And I had some friends who didn't live in the immediate neighborhood who were so frustrated that they weren't allowed past to see what was going on. But thank you, everyone, for everything. And someday, when I find some paper and a pencil and can sit down, I will write notes to everyone. Thank you.
I was here the morning after. I know everybody in Kitty Hawk, the emergency folks were there. When people offer you stuff, take it. I'm just tell you.
We don't know what we need.
I know, you're stubborn too, though, but you know, you can't do it all yourself. And Kitty Hawkers are the givingest people. It's just amazing what the community does, so whatever is offered to you, please take it, you deserve it.
Thank you, I will try.
Glad you and Tom are okay?
Thank you.
Very much, very glad of it. On a different note, I've been to the beach twice in the last 2 weeks. Please don't ask to look at my legs, because I'm not going to show them to you. But to the bathhouse, every time we went across, friends went across, the lifeguard spoke, "Good morning. How are you, sir? How are you, ma'am?" When we left, it was "Have a good day." I was leaving one time, and there's two ladies coming up with coolers and chairs, and the lifeguards jumped down, weren't even asked, to help the ladies bring the stuff on the beach. And I just thought that was great. Good reflection on the town of Kitty Hawk. And I just want to thank them publicly. Already, they're doing a great job. That's all.
Gee, not much left. I am glad that you and Tom are well and healing,
We are healing.
and that's what really counts. All right. I don't have much else to say. Is there any public comment? Let the record show no one came forward. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.